Clara had worked at Julian Blake's mansion for nearly 3 years. Though dedicated to her work, she never expected to be called into his office for such an unusual and unexpected conversation. Julian, a renowned yet distant businessman, was facing a crisis in his company and desperately needed to win over influential investors at a dinner that evening. Lacking the time or patience to find a suitable companion, he looked at Clara, who was busy cleaning, and coldly commanded, "I need you to come to an important dinner tonight. This isn't a request, it's an order. Just go and be quiet. I need someone who'll keep to herself and stay silent." Clara was surprised but hid her reaction. Though it felt more like a command than an invitation, she saw it as an opportunity to prove something deeper. She agreed, sensing the tension and realizing this night would be far from ordinary. Clara arrived at the upscale restaurant precisely on time, wearing a tasteful, elegant dress. Julian stood at the entrance, clearly impatient. He barely looked her way, saying only, "Let's go," in a brusque tone, as if she were merely a forgettable accessory. Inside, all eyes turned to them. The investors were already seated at the center table. Introducing Clara dismissively, Julian said, "This is Clara. She's here with me tonight," without even mentioning her last name. The investors, all formally dressed and with discerning looks, gave polite nods. Some exchanged curious glances, as Clara's presence seemed unexpected and out of place. Clara took in their silent judgments but remained poised. As the dinner continued, Julian and the investors delved into discussions of profits, growth, and expansion strategies. Clara listened closely, observing every detail. At one point, Mr. Lawson, a tall man with an authoritative air, turned to her and asked in a patronizing tone, "So, Clara, what do you think of a business dinner like this?" His question implied he expected a modest response. Clara, sensing the tension around the table, could have simply smiled politely, but she chose to assert herself. "Actually, it's fascinating to witness everything firsthand," she replied calmly. "Focusing on financial projections is interesting, but understanding the people behind those numbers is just as important." Everyone fell silent, and the looks around the table froze. Clara held her composed demeanor while Julian glared at her, a mixture of surprise and irritation in his eyes. She had just expressed her own opinion, a bold move given Julian's earlier demand for silence. Mr. Lawson raised his eyebrows, intrigued by her insight. "Interesting perspective," he remarked as the other investors looked at her with new curiosity. Julian's expression grew colder. This was the opposite of the quiet evening he had planned. The evening, far from discreet, was now increasingly tense. Clara continued holding her own, aware of Julian's unease but resolute in speaking her mind. Mr. Lawson, noticing her confidence, seemed eager to hear more, perhaps drawn by her challenge to his assumptions. When the conversation shifted to corporate social responsibility, an area clearly lacking in Julian's business model, Clara took the chance to add her thoughts. Mr. Lawson turned to Julian and asked, "Does Mr. Blake consider social projects in his company?" Casting a meaningful look his way. Before Julian could respond, Clara replied, "I believe social initiatives are a meaningful way for successful companies to give back. After all, businesses exist for more than just profits." A stunned silence followed, with every eye on Clara. Despite the intense focus, she maintained her calm. Mr. Lawson, clearly impressed, smiled and said, "Exactly what I believe, Clara. It's rare to hear that around here." This comment was a subtle jab at Julian, whose expression hardened even more. He had brought her to blend into the background, and now she was attracting the very attention he wanted for himself. Annoyed, Julian finally spoke up. "It's easy to speak about things you don't understand, Clara," he said with a dismissive smirk. "Leadership carries a weight you might not grasp." Clara met his gaze directly. Without flinching, she replied, "Maybe I don't understand leadership's full weight, but I do know its impact. Sometimes those at a distance see things those at the top can't." Her unexpected response made Mr. Lawson chuckle, admiring her courage. The other investors, too, exchanged approving looks, clearly impressed by her. At that moment, Julian realized he had lost control of the evening. Unable to hide his frustration, he decided to walk out at the end of the dinner, leaving Clara behind without a word. She, however, didn't need his acknowledgement. She knew her voice had been heard, and that was what mattered most. But little did she know, this wouldn't be the end of the matter. Once back at the mansion, Julian called Clara into his office, his face full of anger. "What were you thinking, Clara?" he demanded before she could even sit down. "I brought you there to be discreet, not to steal the spotlight." Clara, calm despite his fury, replied, "I simply answered a question, Mr. Julian. I expressed my opinion, nothing more." He glared at her with disdain. "You're a housekeeper, Clara. You're not paid to have opinions at business dinners. You overstepped every boundary." Clara took a deep breath, feeling the sting of his words but refusing to let them diminish her. "If my presence bothered you so much, then why did you ask me to go?" she asked, her voice even. His tone turned cold. "You were paid to accompany me, including staying silent. Consider this your last day here. You're fired." Clara remained composed, letting his declaration wash over her without flinching. With a steady demeanor, she turned and left, feeling that the night had shown her a clearer sense of who she was and what she could accomplish. Though harsh, she saw this firing as the start of a new chapter. The following day, as she packed her things, an unexpected call came through. It was Mr. Lawson, the investor who had been intrigued by her stance at the dinner. He wanted her on his team, a role she had never imagined. Determined, Clara accepted, turning the humiliation of her dismissal into a promising new opportunity. Under Mr. Lawson's guidance in the months that followed, Clara flourished. She unlocked talents and leadership skills she never knew she had, earning the respect of her new colleagues and, finally, working in a place where her voice was valued. Meanwhile, Julian's company struggled. His arrogant decisions had alienated partners, and impulsive choices had worsened the crisis. The tide finally turned when the company Clara now worked for acquired a significant share of Julian's business, bringing her into a leadership role that crossed paths with her former employer. At a leadership meeting, Julian entered the room only to freeze when he saw Clara at the conference table. She looked at him, unfazed and calm, without a hint of resentment. After the meeting, he approached her, barely able to mask his disbelief. "So, you're here with them now?" he muttered. Clara held her ground, replying, "Yes. As you can see, our company acquired a substantial interest in yours." Julian scoffed, hiding his insecurity. "Just because you have a position here doesn't mean you understand real leadership." Clara, calm and steady, replied, "When I worked for you, I learned exactly what not to do to lead a team and how not to be blinded by arrogance." Julian, taken aback, realized she was no longer the housekeeper he had dismissed. Clara had become his biggest lesson in humility, the mirror reflecting his own failures without mercy. Julian, in a moment of frustration, told Clara that the investment he made was a calculated risk. The investor doesn't have any real control. He just wanted a small share. Nothing more, he explained defensively. Clara, with a steady gaze, challenged him. "What about our commitment to valuing people and leading with transparency? This isn't the kind of leadership we promised to build." Her words felt like a hard truth to him, leaving him feeling exposed and vulnerable. Julian, feeling resentment well up, blurted, "Why do you always expect me to fail?" "I'm trying, Clara. I really want to do what's right." Clara sighed, her gaze softening, but her voice remained firm. "It's not about wanting you to fail, Julian. It's about you truly understanding the impact of your actions. Leadership isn't just about big moves. It's about responsibility. Acting in secret only proves that you still don't get it." Julian looked away, burdened by her words. "Maybe I'll never understand it the way you want," he admitted. Clara nodded, as if expecting his response. "Maybe so, but until you do, you'll keep breaking the promises you made. That kind of responsibility can quickly become too much to bear." 2 weeks later, the board convened to discuss Julian's decision to make the deal without approval. Concerns mounted over the implications of his choice, and Clara was the first to voice her objections. "This contract represents a shift in the values we set out to uphold. Now, an external investor has a hand in our social projects, and we all understand the risks this brings." The board president, Mr. Anderson, after hearing Clara's concerns, turned to Julian, seeking his rationale. Julian, struggling to maintain his composure, explained, "I believe the investment will provide the financial strength we need to expand and make this project sustainable in the long run. Mr. Anderson, unimpressed, responded sternly, Julian, this isn't just about money. We're dealing with a mission that can't be compromised, and you acted impulsively. The pressure mounted as Julian saw the disappointment in Clara's face. It became painfully clear that he had lost not only the board's trust, but also another opportunity to show he could change. The meeting ended with the board deciding to reassess Julian's authority, possibly limiting his decision-making power going forward. Feeling defeated, Julian left the room in silence. That evening, as he sat alone, he realized that his ego and impulsive nature had been his downfall. Clara wasn't simply criticizing him. She was trying to show him a new way to lead. For the first time, Julian began to understand that the leadership he was used to had no place here anymore. On the verge of an emotional breakdown, he spent the night contemplating his choices. All he had built now felt hollow, and he understood that this collapse wasn't just the board's doing or Clara's fault. It stemmed from his own actions. For years, he had clung to selfish, short-sighted decisions, and now it was isolating him from his team, the board, and especially from Clara. The following morning, Julian arrived at the office early, determined to look within himself. Surrounded by reports and notes, he replayed Clara's words. "You're still treating this company like a profit machine," she had said. Now he began to feel the weight of those words and wonder if he ever understood true leadership. He realized that perhaps he had just been playing a role, a cold businessman obsessed with numbers. But now, with his reputation and relationships in jeopardy, he saw the need to go beyond numbers. Later that day, Clara visited him in his office. For the first time, her usual coldness was softened, as if sensing his vulnerability. Julian, weary of all the disputes, spoke honestly. "Clara," he began hesitantly, "I know I've made mistakes. I know my choices have hurt people. I understand if you think there's no point in trying anymore." Clara listened in silence, her arms crossed, though her posture hinted that she was open to his words. "This is a start, Julian," she replied, her voice softer than usual. "But acknowledging mistakes isn't enough. What do you plan to do about it?" Taking a deep breath, Julian responded, "I'm not sure yet, Clara. All I know is that I can't keep doing things the same way." Clara nodded slowly. "That's true. Real change requires daily effort. Leadership isn't about being in control all the time. It's about serving others. Are you willing to try that?" Swallowing hard, Julian replied, "Yes, I'm willing, but I don't know if I can do it alone." Clara gave a slight smile, as if seeing hope in him for the first time. "No one can do it alone, Julian. That's why real leadership is about partnerships. You have to trust people. You can't handle everything by yourself." Her words echoed in his mind. He had always tried to control everything himself, thinking that trusting others would weaken him. Now he began to see that trust was the missing piece in his journey as a leader. After a moment of silence, Clara continued, "If you're serious about change, there's a path forward, but it won't be easy. You'll have to let go of everything you thought you knew about leadership." Finally, feeling a sense of hope, Julian replied, "I'm ready to do whatever it takes. Show me how I can help." That same week, Clara took him to a social project the company was supporting, as part of their efforts to rebuild trust with the community. Used to his corporate environment, Julian found the real-world setting uncomfortable, but also eye-opening. Sitting in a room with single mothers, survivors of abuse, and others facing adversity, he began to understand the stakes. These were lives that depended on every bit of support they received. After the meeting, an elderly woman approached him, asking if he was Mr. Julian Blake, the company's owner. When he confirmed, she told him about her son, a former employee who had been let go without warning, a decision that devastated him. Julian, feeling a pang of guilt, replied, "I'm sorry. I didn't know." The woman shook her head. "Maybe you didn't care to know, but I saw you here today, and I hope things are really changing." Julian left, feeling small and exposed. Back at the office, he found Clara and thanked her sincerely. "Today, I finally understood what you meant," he said. Clara, her gaze now softened, replied, "This is only the beginning, Julian. Change takes time, and it requires action. But over time, you may come to understand that true leadership is about service." In the weeks that followed, Julian devoted himself to the project, participating fully and learning from the team. He gradually shifted from giving orders to listening and supporting. Although the board remained cautious, they began to notice subtle shifts in Julian's approach. He was becoming more open to feedback and less impulsive, while Clara continued to observe, watching his transformation cautiously. By the end of that month, Julian began to feel at peace. For the first time, he saw the project as a mission that could positively impact many lives, not just a stepping stone to personal success. Over time, Julian's constant involvement in the project, his thoughtful questions, and his efforts to listen and understand proved he was genuinely committed. His dedication became evident, and as it did, the board's respect and trust in him grew as well. Initially, Julian attended project meetings as a mere formality, but soon these gatherings became essential to his routine. He began learning participants' names, understanding their stories, and tracking their progress. It was a world far removed from the luxurious office meetings with high-profile business people that used to fill his days. During one of these visits, Julian had a long conversation with Mary, a middle-aged woman who had lost her job and was given a second chance through the project. She opened up to him with heartfelt sincerity about the hardships she had faced and how the initiative had helped her regain her dignity. "This is more than a job to me, Mr. Julian," she said, her eyes filled with emotion. "It's a new life. For the first time, I feel like someone believes in my potential." Julian felt a lump in his throat. He wasn't merely helping one individual, he was transforming lives. Each story he heard reminded him of the impact he could have, strengthening his resolve to be worthy of the trust these people placed in him. The project was no longer a concept on paper, it had come to life. As positive outcomes began to emerge, the company's reputation soared. Board members who had once questioned Julian's ability to lead responsibly now showed signs of approval. In board meetings, he presented results with humility, highlighting the contributions of the team and underscoring Clara's crucial role. Every data point was proof that the project was making a real difference, and the board members were visibly pleased. During one meeting, Mr. Anderson, the chairman, remarked, "Julian, you're handling this project with a dedication we didn't expect. This pilot project is a success, and I believe we can expand it sustainably." Julian smiled, quietly absorbing the weight of this acknowledgement. Julian knew that Clara had been an invaluable mentor in this process, and he made sure to recognize her in every meeting. However, his admiration for her began to grow beyond the professional realm. As they spent more time together, he started seeing Clara differently. She was more than just a brilliant leader. She was a strong, compassionate woman, deeply passionate about her work. He noticed how she spoke to each project participant, the attention she gave to detail, and the respect she showed to everyone. Clara was a quiet force that inspired trust and respect. During one community visit, Julian and Clara attended a small celebration organized by the project's participants to thank the team. Observing Clara's interactions with the attendees, Julian was moved by her warmth and genuine kindness. She seemed to belong there, and everyone responded to her natural empathy. "She really understands these people," Julian thought admiringly. Clara wasn't just leading the project. She was part of it, and people sensed that. After the celebration, Julian offered to walk Clara back to the office. As they strolled through the quiet streets, he felt compelled to know more about her. Clara had always been somewhat enigmatic to him, and he was eager to understand what drove her. "Clara," he began in a softer tone, "I've always been impressed by your dedication to this project. What inspired you to get so involved?" She smiled, her face lighting up. "Julian, I've always felt the need to do something beyond myself. Growing up, I saw people around me struggle, and it left a mark. Working on something that gives others a fresh start is my way of adding meaning to my life." Her words resonated with Julian in an unexpected way. For him, this project had been about building his reputation and legacy, but for Clara, it was a personal mission. In that moment, he began to understand the depth of the extraordinary woman beside him. In the following weeks, Julian and Clara's partnership grew closer and more relaxed. What had once been formal and reserved turned into a bond of mutual admiration and trust. They shared ideas, discussed strategies, and supported each other's decisions. But Julian realized something profound was shifting within him. He didn't just admire Clara, He was beginning to fall in love with her. This revelation took him by surprise. Always cautious and skeptical about workplace relationships, he found himself thinking about Clara often, looking for reasons to be near her, just to see her smile. Clara was a steady, reassuring presence who challenged him to be better. One night, after a long meeting discussing the project's future, their conversation veered from professional to personal. Julian took the opportunity to express his gratitude. Clara, I owe you so much. You've taught me more in these past months than I've learned in years. I used to think success was all about control and expansion, but you showed me the real value of creating something that truly matters. Clara looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his words. It means a lot to me to hear that, Julian. Watching this change in you has been one of the most rewarding things I've experienced. Their eyes met, and a subtle but undeniable tension filled the air. Julian felt a desire to move closer, but hesitated, not wanting to overstep the boundaries of their professional relationship. Still, he knew his feelings for Clara were real. As time passed, Julian found himself drawn to Clara even more deeply. He noticed the little things about her, the way she smiled when talking about something meaningful, how she inspired everyone around her, and the conviction with which she defended the project's mission. Clara was someone who brought a sense of purpose to his life that he had never felt before. One particularly long night, while they reviewed reports together, Julian found himself blurting out, "You know, you're one of the most amazing people I've ever met." Clara laughed softly, surprised by his candidness. "Thank you, Julian, but you've changed a lot too. You've become someone truly admirable." Her words struck a chord in him, and he realized he was indeed in love. It wasn't a passing attraction. It was a profound admiration and desire to share his life's mission with Clara. In the end, Julian and Clara found not only love, but a shared vision for a more compassionate and purposeful world. Together, they led their company with integrity, setting a powerful example of ethical leadership that resonated across industries. Their impact extended beyond business. They touched lives, uplifted communities, and inspired countless others to believe in the power of second chances and transformative growth. As time went on, Julian and Clara became mentors to others, guiding young leaders to prioritize people over profits and championing projects that brought hope and opportunity to those who needed it most. Their efforts were widely recognized, but they remained grounded, knowing that their greatest reward was the positive change they were making. Years later, as they looked back on their journey, Julian reflected on how far he had come, grateful that Clara had seen his potential and shown him a new path. Clara, too, was thankful for the journey that had brought them together and allowed them to create something truly meaningful. Their story became a testament to the transformative power of love, resilience, and purpose. They had built a legacy that would live on, inspiring future generations to lead with compassion and dedication. And so, side by side, they continued their work, knowing that together they could face anything the future held. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more video.